Welcome to the Sisterhood of S.W.E.A.T. I'm here today with Steven Puri.
Hi, I'm Linda Mitchell, 54-year-old elite obstacle racer, award-winning fitness competitor, gym owner, and author. Welcome to the Sisterhood of S.W.E.A.T. podcast, where we will approach the difficult topics of life, interview inspiring guests, and bring empowerment to all. This community is a place where we can be who we are instead of who others want us to be. Let's get started.
A quarter century of probiotic excellence. Essential Formulas Incorporated proudly celebrates 25 years of innovation and leadership in the probiotic industry. Since introducing Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics, the gold standard in full-spectrum probiotics in early 2000, we have remained dedicated to advancing probiotic science through research, education, and cutting-edge product development. Over the years, we have expanded our commitment by introducing groundbreaking products designed to nourish the microbiome, both inside and out, such as RegActive and Dr. Ohhira's Probiotic Skincare. As we step into our next quarter century, we extend our deepest gratitude to all those who share our vision of probiotic excellence for better human health. Dr. Ohhira's probiotics are available at natural grocers, Sprouts, Whole Foods, and natural health retailers nationwide. Discover the Dr. Ohhira's difference today.
Most of us have experienced those rare days when everything just clicks. You've focused, you've got a creative environment, you're energized, and somehow you accomplish more in a few hours than you normally would in an entire day. I feel like that's being in the zone. Then there are other days where you have constant interruption, endless notification and phone calls, mental fatigue, and the feeling that you're busy but not actually moving forward. So what's the difference? Today's guest has spent his career answering that question from two fascinating worlds. First, as a Hollywood executive, helping bring major films like Transformers, Star Trek, The Wolverine, and Die Hard to the big screen. Then as a tech entrepreneur, building companies, raising over $21 million in venture capital and leading teams through the fast-paced world of innovation. Now Steven Puri is on a mission to help people achieve sustainable high performance, not by working longer hours, but by understanding how the brain works best. Through his company, the Suka, he teaches leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals how to create focus, inner flow states, prevent burnout, and use artificial intelligence to become more effective instead of more overwhelmed. Well, I'm interested to hear about that because sometimes I think some of that leads to more overwhelm. Whether you're leading a business, building a career, or simply trying to reclaim your attention in a distracted world, this conversation is packed with practical tools you can start using today. I am so excited to welcome Steven Puri to the show today. Welcome.
Hello. I hope this is one of your more entertaining and maybe helpful episodes. We're going to see.
Hey, I love that. What caused you, I just want to dive right in, to go from being like somebody that's getting all these major movies out there like Transformers, Star Trek, The Wolverine, Die Hard, which, if you can believe this, I just watched the first three, or is that all there is? I watched them at Christmas.
5, but there's one good one.
Okay, with my family. So we were watching them at Christmas and I was like, oh my gosh, so good, so good. What caused you to change from all of that to where you are?
You teed that up so beautifully because it really dovetails with what we were talking about your podcast and your audience, okay? So let us use Die Hard as not only the answer to your question, but also a way of thinking about like where we fit in. So for those listening, what Linda's referencing is I was a senior executive as a vice president at 20th Century Fox, where I ran like the Die Hard franchise, Wolverine, stuff like that. I was also an executive vice president at DreamWorks for Kurtzman Orsi, which was the era of like Transformers 1 and 2 and Star Trek and Eagle Eye and things like that, right? So that's what she's referencing is I've done stuff in film. It's all collaborative. I didn't make and direct and star in a film all myself. I'm not like Superman, but I've worked around a lot of very talented people. Okay. Now, why did I leave that to go create a flow state app? It's a really good question. And I'll say the answer very succinctly is Die Hard 5. So when I was at DreamWorks, the chairman of Fox found a kind of funny way to get a one-on-one meeting with me, which traditionally as a senior executive at DreamWorks, you're rarely in the room with the chairman of another studio alone. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen a lot. So we're in this room and he essentially said, hey, I'd love for you to come here. I know you work with some really great talent and I want to work with that kind of talent here. So he said, I'll double your salary, which was, meaningful, but that's not the end of the world, right? He said, however, I bet you grew up watching Die Hard. I was like, I did. I remember watching like Die Hard 1 and 2, right? He said, would you want to be the executive on the Die Hard franchise? And there's only one guy on earth who could offer that, right? That's not something you just shop around for. And that was hard to say no to. So I ended up after a bunch of wrangling, because DreamWorks is a fantastic studio. And I loved working with Steven and Stacy and Alex and Bob and the whole thing there. But that was really hard to say no, like, oh, you could make the next Die Hard movie, right? So I went there. And I'll tell you, after a couple of years there, it was clear we were going to make Die Hard 5. It was a script that had been started before I got there. So I sort of like stepped into it. And it was terrible. It was a script. It was a movie without a real idea, right? So you can have plots in movies. The plot of this movie is there's a guy trapped on a bus that can't go less than 60 miles an hour and, blows up if it does, plot stuff, right? And then there's like character. There's like deeper stuff, which hopefully makes you care to watch the bus going 60 miles an hour or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's the more interesting answer to your question. The push at my studio to make Die Hard 5, regardless if it was good or not, because you could simply budget it. You could simply say, hey man, there are this many fans that will just show up to hear Bruce say yippee-ki-yay. Make it for less than that. You make money on the movie. If it's good, it's just icing on the cake, but it's not really why we're here, right? Which to me was like, why would I waste my life? I'm going to turn 40, 50, 60, 70 years old making Die Hard 19, whatever, and knowing that they're bad, but they make money because people come anyway. And the studio, it's called show business, not show art, right? Okay. So here's the thing. Die Hard 5, was there a deep character thing behind it? No. But the original one, which I know you just watched recently, was so good that it launched a franchise. Right? It was not built as a franchise movie. It launched a franchise. And this is what it tapped into.
People think it's a Christmas movie.
Well, this is the thing is, I get that very frequently when I lecture, when I talk. People are like, Die Hard, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? I debate that with my husband and my wife. Right? So here's the answer to that question. Do you remember the very first shot of the movie? The very first shot. Do you remember it? Maybe not. I'll tell you what it is. You see a close-up of a man's hand clutching an airline seat, like the armrest, right? And it's his left hand and he has a wedding band on. If you were to pause the movie right there and go, I've seen one image of a man clutching an airline seat, thing, and he's got a wedding ring on, you'd go, okay, well, there's a married man who's flying on an airplane. He clearly doesn't look comfortable on airplanes, right? He's scared out of his mind. So there's some compelling reason why he's on a flight, this married guy, right? It's a really telling shot. The rest of the movie is kind of the playing out of that shot. And I'll tell you how. So he gets, to the airport, right? You remember this? And Argyle, the limo driver, picks him up. He's like, hey, man, it's my first day driving a limo. And you see Bruce talk to the limo driver. And Bruce pretty clearly establishes, like, listen, man, I'm a beat cop running around the streets of New York, jumping and shooting and kicking and, doing stuff. I'm a blue collar dude, right? And Argyle's been sent by his wife's expensive Japanese company, sending a black stretch limo for him at the airport, right? And he ends up sitting in the front with Argyle. He doesn't sit in the back where the clients sit. He puts the teddy bear there, remember? That big teddy bear he brought? He puts that in the back. He sits in the front because he sees himself as a worker like Argyle, right? So Argyle bugs him. He's like, hey man, why are you here? And Bruce being, John McClane is like, come on, right. And like the third time, Bruce finally goes, okay, listen, here's the deal, man. My wife got this job at this big Japanese firm. She moved out to LA. She's got the kids. And, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I'm a beat cop in New York, right? And Argyle says to him, basically, this is the amazing writing in the movie. Argyle says to him in the movie, he goes, okay, so your wife left you for this big high-paying job. And you came out here like a caveman to kind of like get her back, throw her over your shoulder and, bring her back home. And Bruce goes, yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah.
What is the end of the movie? Bruce walks out of a burning building with Bonnie Bedelia over his shoulder where he saved her and the family is reunited, right? It's amazing the way that works. And it is a Christmas movie because when do families come together?
Christmas.
At the holidays. You can scatter all the country, go to college. We have our family in Utah. But at Christmas, you come together. And it's a story about what was happening in the world at the time. Women had suddenly risen up that some were so successful, they were making more money than their men. And that made the men feel displaced. The Bruce Willises were like, what is this world where my wife She's making more money than I am. She's in this
Oh, yeah.
tall tower, right? And
Mhm.
I'm a beat cop running around the streets. And that is what really was the thing that made that movie speak about more than just there are terrorists in a building and the good guy will stop the terrorists. It was about a
Mhm.
guy wrestling with this. And if you remember, because you saw the movie recently, he loses the beats of the movie until he has this scene where he's broken down. He doesn't think he's going to make it out. And he says, listen, if you find my wife, tell her I love her. Once the movie gets him to that point, he starts to win the movie. He had
Yeah,
to give him
I
those.
got a little teary there,
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm
even
with
though
you.
I've
And
seen the movie.
that's why the movie spawned 5 movies. But I'll tell you this, if you look at the rest of the movies, they don't tap into the cultural zeitgeist. They're not about a deep issue like, well, how is my masculinity
You
threatened by the
made
fact my
my
woman's really
you
successful?
you made me feel something,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's really important in a good movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Totally with you. So long answer, but you asked for it. And that is why I left. I was like, I'm going to be sitting here making sequels, prequels, franchise, spin-offs, and none of this is about anything. It's about, hey, can we get Robert Downey Jr. back in the Iron Man costume the 19th time? Because people will go pay for it.
I just remember this conversation a little bit similar with my youngest, who's a cinematographer,
Hmm?
and he was basically saying, "Mom, it's just like everything's a repeat of a repeat of a repeat. No originality, But I mean, there is some, but just saying like,
It's hard to squeak through because this is the things I don't fault my boss. My boss, the chairman, is running a business. And if his accountants say, hey, you make another Die Hard movie, we can do projections based on the first 4, how much it will make. And you
I
can
mean,
actually
it
run a
is about
business.
money, I'm
It's
sure.
about business. It's not
Yeah,
called show art. So he's
sure.
like, hey, if you make Die Hard 5, I kind of can do the projections for News Corp for next year better than if you go make original movie number 1, where we're like, who knows if it's any good? Who knows the audience likes it, right? So
Well,
there
it's
you
kind
go.
of like brands, right?
It
If
is.
you go eat somewhere and you know it's good and it's pretty much the same, you trust it.
Right.
It's going to be good again.
Yeah.
Usually it is. So I see why they're doing that, but I
Mhm.
can also see why you didn't want to do that. It's kind of like what you wanted to do, I guess,
Mm.
in Hollywood. You're
Yeah.
kind of selling out in a way.
In a way. You don't need in a way. Put the period right after out.
You're selling your soul.
I'm telling you. And I have an 8-month-old now, and I do think about stuff I've never thought about before in my life. Like at some point, he will be old enough to say, Daddy, what did you do? And I want to tell him something more meaningful than I made Die Hard 9. Don't see it. It's not good, but I did it.
So you wanted meaning.
I wanted to do something where I thought the world is slightly better because I did this
Yeah.
than people were distracted for 2 hours. And, it's a lot of why I do, Suka now is the same thing of just like, how does this somehow help someone feel more realized? Like you were talking with Trudeau about, how does someone like manifest the thing that they want, create their dream? Like that's a noble thing to do. And if one person listening goes, that actually changed how I think about this, and I'm now writing the book I meant to write or starting the company I wanted to start, something, you go, oh, that's a meaningful use of this time.
Now, going back to something you said, because you were
Mhm.
saying how men felt displaced, I think that is very much the ideal of what was going on in the movie, because when women become successful, it's like a problem
Scary.
with men.
It's scary.
What is the solution that do you have any solutions for that?
Well, think about, because did you ever see the movie Taken with Liam Neeson?
Of course I did, and
Okay,
I
just checking.
said to my son, "You'll like it. It's not like," I said, "Well, it's somewhat like a Lifetime movie," and then he watches it, he's like, "Mom, that is nothing like a Lifetime movie." He loves it.
Well, hold on a moment. So I kind of agree with you. Taken is Die Hard. Taken and Die Hard are stories of men who have lost the woman in their family's love to someone other man who's more wealthy. Like the scene in Taken where he goes to the birthday party like a boombox, and like the new stepdad brings her a pony, and he looks at that, he goes, I can't compete. The exact same way Bruce Willis looks at those Japanese businessmen, he's like, I can't compete in this world. And what do both of them realize? Both of them realize I have one set of skills. I know how to jump and shoot and kick and punch, and I could win back the love of that female family member if they just needed that. If they were in danger and what they needed was not money, but someone who could run and jump and kick and shove and punch, and
who would basically give up their life for them.
Right. And if you remember in Taken, there's a moment after, remember the pop star that he has to be like secret, security for? She has some crazy, and he gets her in the limo and she's clutching on to him. And you look at that shot where she is there underneath his arm, hugging him, and you look at his face and you can tell he's thinking, if something like this happened with my daughter, she would be back. She would need me. I want my daughter to feel like this girl does here. And what is the end of the movie? He shoots the guy on the yacht and the daughter is clutching onto him, just like the pop star. In some ways, those movies are wish fulfillment fantasies for the men.
Okay.
You would need me and love me again if you were in danger.
Okay. So what we're seeing then is they're not feeling needed and they're feeling displaced.
Hmm?
So what can the female do outside of this movie? I feel like now we need a female version because the female wants to be successful, but the male isn't liking it. So how does she make him feel okay with her success?
And this is really hard because you can't just flip that. Like when you've tried to make Supergirl or something that's just like the gender flip of Superman or something like that, it doesn't exactly work because the needs we have as young boys and girls are different. Society teaches us things as well as there are innate things about being a boy or girl that are different. So you may, and you and I talked about this, you may as a woman have an innate desire to take care of people around you and almost put yourself second. Whereas a guy, you're very often taught to be like the alpha male of the group and take care of yourself first. And, people respect you more for that. So how you as a woman achieve when you're thinking, I have to take care of everyone else first, that's a real challenge. If you were to put a woman straight into the character of John McClane, no one would believe the movie. They're like, what? The woman goes and shoots everybody? You know what I mean? It's just like, even Angelina Jolie could pull off that role back when she was, a star. So I think that's kind of the core there of like, how do you tell that story as a woman is you say, well, I want to retain what is feminine and magical about women because like I'm married to an amazing woman who is incredibly successful, like senior vice president, a national bank, like incredibly successful, but also is very much like a beautiful woman and a partner to me and a mom to our child. And she just views like I have work to do, but I also can come home and we can go salsa dancing or something, or we can take him to the park and play with, the little rascal in the park. And balancing those things, I think, is really what it's about. It's not the male version of success, which is I must break down all the walls and show everyone on the best and, put everyone else down. Like that's kind of sadly an old trope.
So there's so much in movies and I still don't see how you pulled yourself away. Did you think that there wouldn't be any originality then, that it was just going to keep being like, Die Hard 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is clear. Even my few friends who have stayed in film since I left, and a lot of them have left, right? The business is not the robust business we remember of the 2000s. Most of them are saying, hey, man, I know we're shooting Ant-Man 3. We're already working on the script for Ant-Man 6. It is like a good friend of mine at Marvel. That's kind of his life. And I've teased him about it at parties. And he's like, I know, but you know what? My kids are going to have to pay for college someday. Da, da, da. It's just like, fine. I'm making $350, $400 a year, cranking out formulaic stuff that we projected 5 years into the future. Can you fault me? I have to pay for college. And on a certain level, you're like, hey, man, better than digging salt mines, So, yeah, I just couldn't do that anymore. And it's been hard, the ups and downs of entrepreneurial life. Let me not make this sound like this is great. Like the highest earning part of my life was definitely, DreamWorks, Fox, like that era. I don't collect a paycheck for Suka. Tony, my partner, and I, we created a flow state app for people so they could do something with their lives, often as a side hustle. Like we have a lot of writers who have day jobs or their moms, and they're like, I want to write my blog. I want to write my novel. And it's just a way to get into a flow state and do that in a way that feels more natural. You get more done in less time because as we get older and we have kids, like time is at a premium. You can't just sit around like when you're 20 years old and sit in the park and, daydream.
So how did you become the guy that does all of this, like helps people get to get into flow? And we'll start there.
I will tell you the slightly embarrassing thing. So I was working on an app that was like a sort of mindful to-do list kind of app. And I live in Austin, Texas, was flying to San Francisco because the next day I was going to meet with my team. And I wanted to mock up an idea I had for a feature, right? Just go to Figma with my hacky skills and kind of like lay it out. And if people dug it tomorrow in the meeting, then designers could make it like pretty. Alaska runs that nonstop. Get on the flight. Captain's like, sorry, kids, Wi-Fi's out. See you at SFO. Okay, fine. So we take off. I start working on my little laptop. Like 15 minutes later, we're descending. I think, oh, we're at Dallas Fort Worth. Like something's wrong with the aircraft. We're going to land here. They're going to swap it and we'll continue on, blah, blah. I looked down, 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. It was 15 minutes to me. I couldn't tell if the drink cart had come down the aisle. I didn't know the name of the guy in the seat next to me, like nothing. Like I was in my own little world. And as we were landing, I had actually finished my designs and I'd prepared myself for get in the Uber, grab a sandwich in the hotel lobby, go up to the room and try and like bang it out at the little desk in the hotel room before I pass out. In reality, I was done. So I called up a buddy of mine from the Uber. I was like, hey man, I have a free night in SF. You want to have dinner? So we went to have dinner. I described this to him. I was like, I had this weird experience on the flight where like the flight felt like 15 minutes long. I got all my work done. I was kind of in a good mood. Probably helped by the fact that the Wi-Fi was out. So there were no incoming WhatsApps. There's no DMs, SMS. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of in a sheltered little place. He's like, oh yeah, you were in a flow state. And I was like, a what? He's like, flow state. How do you not know what that is? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, that's the thing. And again, in San Francisco, everyone's been biohacking and flow states and all that, So he's like, yeah, it's a neuro state you can get into where you do your best work, you do it faster than you think possible, you can feel good at the end. It's like basically everything you talk about. You lose track of time. Like, well, he's like, you should read more about it. There's a guy who wrote a book about it. And that was the beginning of an interesting journey for me, where it all goes back to a guy, this Hungarian-American psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Really long name, lots of consonants in it, right? But that's how you pronounce it. And this is like 40, 50 years ago now. He said, isn't it weird how you can talk to high performers in very different disciplines, like athletes and artists and scientists and inventors. And when they talk to you about like the highly concentrated state where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing that we know them for, they talk about that state in very similar ways, even though what they're actually doing is very different. He's like, his thesis was there's something there, right? So he did the interviews and the research and the whole thing. At the end of it, he wrote a book called Flow. It's a seminal work on this. It's why we call it a flow state. And he said the greatest thing. He said, all of these famous people I met with, they have their own words for it. Michael Jordan talks about when I'm in the zone, it's me and the ball. Picasso had his muses. Einstein his thought experiment. Like they all have their words for it. But I chose this word flow because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found. We are all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. It magnifies your efforts.
Gosh,
and you go further and faster.
Such an epiphany right there.
Right?
Instead of fighting and forcing and
right. Just align your boat with the current. And
okay.
So he sort of laid out, this is what I found. Like the characteristics are very much what we talked about. Is like you kind of lose track of time. Distractions fall away. They're kind of uninteresting. You immerse yourself in the work. You're not self-conscious and judging yourself. You're kind of like in it, doing your best work quickly. And at the end, you can feel up instead of tired, right? And man, changed my life. One of my first thoughts was, why didn't someone tell me about this in college? Would have changed my college years, And so that's what I do with my life now. Tony and I made a community around flow states, and we put all the ingredients into a website, and that's what we do. And it's super fun. Way more fun than doing Die Hard 9. I'll tell you that right now.
So many questions. But first of all, how do we get into flow?
Okay. Let me preface everything I'm going to say, which is the smart stuff I'm going to say is because a lot of people have spent 10, 20, 30 years researching this, and I'm just here to give it to you. So it's not that I'm smart. It's just that I've done a lot of reading on this, a lot of experimentation on myself. I have ADHD. It was something that I had to learn how to manage.
Okay.
More the attention, deficit part than the hyperactivity sort of thing. So the things that generally help people into a flow state. Mihaly wrote, he said, it seems that these high performers get into a flow state if a couple of conditions are true. There's a clear task that they think is meaningful. So it's not, Michael Jordan taking out the trash or Picasso painting a wall. All right.
Okay.
So he's like,
makes sense.
They have a clear task. They think it's meaningful.
Yes.
They have skills that apply. So it's not like Picasso throwing a basketball. It's not Michael Jordan painting, right? Mm-hmm. And they're doing it at a level that challenges them. Like it really is like, I'm doing something great here at the edge of my skills. And there's some more that sort of go into his conditions precedent, but he said, it's when you're in that set of conditions that then you can drop into flow. And one of the biggest things is sound. And there's a lot of research around what kind of sound, what kind of oral environment helps you get into this state where you can, like in an hour, do 2 or 3 hours worth of work and feel good about it, especially like if you're pressed for time or you're a mom or a dad and you only have so many hours on the side to build your side project, like you need to use it well. So I'll tell you, I have, a bunch of friends who were film composers. Shocking. I worked in film for like 20 years. So I went to them. I said, here's the research. You write me a bunch of flow music, 1,000 hours of flow music. The sweet spot for most people, 60 to 90 beats per minute. Certain key signatures more than others, like D minor, for example. Non-vocal. So you're not singing along with Britney or Blackpink or whatever your jam is, right? It's music that is in a certain strata where you don't love it, where it distracts you. You're like, oh, the song, blah, 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 and you don't hate it where you want to change it. It's in a middle range with long melodic stretches that repeat, that lull you into flow, which is curious because some people turn on their favorite music and then wonder why they're singing along with or thinking about, oh, I love, the song. What happened, when I met Mark and the song was on. So I got about 1,000 hours of this kind of music. We organized into playlists, some lo-fi, some binaural beats, more up tempo, more down tempo, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you an interesting thing happened. So a buddy of mine, Julian, does the sound for the Star Wars games at LucasArts, right, up in Marin. He calls me up a couple of years ago and he said, hey, man, are you still doing that Flow State app? And I was like, I am. He's like, I think I got something for you. Okay, Julian, what do you got? He's like, I was just in Nepal. His son had graduated from high school, I guess done very well, got into a good college. So he's like, what do you want as your graduation gift? He said, I want to do a father-son trip to Nepal, right? So he's like, I just got back from Nepal. One day we were there in Kathmandu. It rained so hard we couldn't go out. And it was this warm, lush, delicious rain. He said, I had some of my recording equipment, so I recorded like 2 hours of this rain. I got back. I realized I'm never going to use this in a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
But I remember you're doing that app. Do you want this? I was like, for free? He's like, yeah, for free. Cool. He sent me a WAV file. I was like, what we'll do is we'll just, in the middle of the other playlists, Sonic Caffeine and Ambient Atmosphere and Binaural Heaven stuff, we'll put one called Himalayan Dream Rain. Just drop it in there. See if anyone finds it. Linda, can I tell you, in a month's time, it became our third most popular playlist, more than most of the music.
It's relaxing and you could get in flow.
You can get in flow. And I was like, maybe a little egotistical. I was like, we spent all this time, all these like smart friends of mine creating all this custom music and rain is beating up. Like what? So I run the platform. I know people's email addresses, right? So I emailed a couple of people and I saw listening to it. Can I talk to you for 5 minutes? Because I just want to understand why rain is this big hit and like, what's up? And I'll tell you, the ones who said yes to the chat, if you boil down what they said, it boils down to basically this sentence. Hearing rain brings me back to a period of time when I had to study. My grandmother raised me in Georgia. Around finals, it'd always pour rain, so we'd be inside studying. My family, when I was young, had a lake house in Michigan, so it would be rain. And it's just so interesting. It was like, oh, so that's this trigger for you we're inside, we're doing our work, blah, blah. And that opened me up being, I guess you can probably tell, a little curious about the world to search for other stuff like that. So I put up I call them naturescapes. I found people who recorded like streams in Japan, lakes in Canada, the surf in Cyprus. No one cared. I put those up. No one listened to them. I was like, oh, is that so different than rain? Okay, fine. What was interesting is I did get an email from one of our members who's a blogger. She's pretty well known UK like coffee shop, kind of like cafe blogger, right? She reached out for the first time ever. I'd seen her sign up. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be like a fanboy. Did it up. I was just like, oh, super cool. So she emailed me and said, hey, I noticed you're experimenting with different non-musical, playlists. She's like, I'm known as this cafe blogger, this cool like chick who sits in, this cafe outside London. I had a baby during the pandemic. I can't go there anymore with like a 1-year-old on my hip. That's not a thing. But I missed that. She's like, is it possible you could find the sounds like a coffee shop and throw that up there as a playlist? Okay. Some dude in Vienna, Austria recorded his local coffee shop for 2 hours. I found it. I asked him, can I use this? He's like, sure. I never thought anyone would ask, but okay. And again, the coffee shop with writers, with our members who are writers, became incredibly popular. So the lesson here I learned towards your question about what are the things that get you in the flow? Know thyself. It may be music. You may say, oh, I need up tempo, down tempo, binaural, it may not be music. It may be rain. It may be the sounds of a coffee shop. But find your trigger that makes your brain go, okay, right, got it. Okay, we're in the coffee shop. This is where I write. It's raining. This is where we study. Anyway, long answer, but hopefully a fun one.
So for me, right, how it happened when I was moving, I would go to the track. Really? All my juices are flowing. All these ideas are coming to me. Of course, I'm listening to stuff, I would have to stop and write in my notes. That's basically how I wrote my whole first book. And so I think people get in flow so many different ways. How important is it to be in alignment to be able to get into flow? Like let's say you're not in alignment, you're doing something you hate.
You're not going to get into flow. And I will tell you the thing you mentioned.
Or that isn't right for you, like a square peg in a round hole.
It's just, it's a mismatch. You're not going to get there. The thing you mentioned, though, is actually very interesting on a related idea, which is there is a great book called The Net and the Butterfly by Olivia Fox-Caban and Judah Pollack. And it talks about the neuroscience behind what you just said. And I'll tell you, I first encountered it when I got out of the University of Southern California. I started working at an ad agency that did trailers for movies and music videos and stuff like that, right? Run by these two guys who are kind of like the madmen of Hollywood. They both left studios, started their own company. And I'm like this 20-year-old, I'll do anything. I just want to break in, right? So my job in this story was I was the guy that when we got in a rough cut of a movie, we did a bunch of work for Warner Brothers, Buena Vista, and Orion. So when the rough cut came in, I would assign it to a writer-producer. I would be like, hey, Linda, you remember you did that great job on that Kate Hudson rom-com at Paramount last year? Well, we've got another Kate Hudson movie. Why don't you take this home and, watch it and write us a trailer, right? So I'm the guy who basically does air traffic control, like doling stuff out. One of my two bosses, the owners, came to my office. His name is Jeff. And for the purposes of this story, he calls me Stevie. He's the only person in my life who's ever called me Stevie, but it's all he calls me to this day, right? So he comes to my office. He goes, Stevie, do you know Bart? I think for a moment, I'm like, there's a guy in the vault, like a runner named Bart. I think I've been in the elevator with him. Yeah. He goes, yeah. You ever give Bart a trailer to write? Bart, the guy who picks up coffee and like delivers tapes. Are we talking the same Bart? He goes, yeah. I have an instinct about him, Stevie. Jeff, your name is on the door. You know what? Let me find something for him. We'll give him a shot, right? So Jeff comes to my office 2 days later. He goes, how's Bart doing? I was like, Jeff, I gave him, some Warner Brothers B title that had a long deadline, right? So if he hated it, we'd have a pro do it, right? I was like, I just gave it to him 2 days ago. Like, I'm not going to stress him out. Okay, Steve, that's fine. It's fine. What else did you give him? Jeff, he's never written a trailer in his life. I gave him one movie to watch. And Jeff said this, Stevie, let me explain to you how creativity works. It is always about the other thing. If you give him one movie to watch, he is going to stare at that thing with little beads of sweat coming down his temples, and he's going to write the most obvious B version of that trailer you can imagine. Because the part of your brain that does what would peanut butter and chocolate taste like? That is not the part you think that you're thinking with. He's like, you have to give him another movie. So while he's watching and thinking about that one, his brain has the great idea on this one. And if I could tell you how many times in the last 20 years, I've seen Jeff proven correct, both in film as well as in tech, astounding. And Bart now is a writer-producer at Fox, by the way. He correctly pulled him out of the chorus line. I was like, this guy's a talent for this. So the book that I mentioned, if anyone's curious about this, it talks about why is this true? And the reason it's true is when you're a baby, you have a default mode network in your brain. It's the one that sort of like, looks at your phone. It's like, what does this taste like? Spot will taste like, And then you develop the executive mode network, which is kind of like the adult in the room. It's like, okay, you got to turn your homework tomorrow at 9. You got to do it tonight. Oh, you have to pick up the kids and you execute actions, right? It's like, I've got to do the dishes, do that, right? So there are so many people who talk about, wow, I have the best ideas when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving, when I'm on a walk, when I'm working out, when I'm, doing the dishes. Because when the executive mode network is busy running, driving, it's not watching the default mode network. And the default mode network, you go, what if this were made of chocolate, right? And that's how you get that weird idea where you're like, I should write that down. That's a fantastic idea. Exactly what you talked about working out, which by the way, my wife and I met in yoga. She's a very serious, she was a D1 athlete in college. And that is where she gets her great ideas for her banking, for the bank where she works, is she'll go and work out. She's like, I need to think. I'm going to go work out.
I love that. And I was outside, I must add as well.
Yeah. Yep. I'm totally with you. It's that thing. And again, all this comes down to just experiment on yourself, know yourself. And it's amazing what you can do, what you can manifest, like your buddy, Mr. Trudeau said.
What do you think some people seem to enter flow naturally while other people struggle to even focus for 10 minutes?
Well, flow is not something where you press a button. So if your expectation is you're going to go, I have 9 minutes, I'm going to be in flow for 9 minutes, you can't really force it that way. Flow is something where if you can get your distractions blocked, like with Suka, when you press play, we block your distractions. You don't get notifications, help with your phone, stuff like that, right? So you kind of need to block that out, play the music or whatever works for you. Maybe it's rain or something. Focus on the task and your brain falls into it. So if you think of it like I'm pressing a button, it's not working, you probably are not going to get into flow. You sort of need to press the button and let the flow happen. Does that make sense? Sounds a little woo, I know. Sorry.
Talking about flow, come on. We expect a little woo-woo to be in there somewhere.
This is true.
People that don't understand flow, maybe like your structural engineers, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're very regimented and very, black and white thinking. They might think it's a little woo-woo, right?
Yep.
But
Agreed.
I think, I personally have a very creative brain. So when you're talking about this, I already can think of all the times I've been in flow, how I personally get in flow.
How is that?
I just tune in to I want to say my inner knowing, but like I was in flow at Mrs. USA.
Okay.
Because I was there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
For me, they said it was all about your platform, and I want to bring the, more awareness, a light for women that suffer from domestic violence, sexual assault, that type of thing.
Yep.
Because I feel like that it's very prevalent since there's 1 in 2 women being abused.
Which is unreal when you think about that.
Yes. And so I knew why I was there. And then that enabled me, that clarity, I guess, like how you said, a clear idea to get in flow. And when it was time for, talking or having to answer a question when you're in the top 4, I didn't do a can thing. I was like, I already know I have it within me. It's just going to come out.
Yep.
And that was the most natural thing. It was flow. It was flow state. My son's girlfriend said every time she saw me, I was just glowing. And I just think that's, you know when you're in it because you can feel it. And it's just kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's that essence of being who you were created to be and being in purpose.
Mm-hmm. There it is. And again, that goes back to a lot of what Mihai wrote, 40-ish years ago.
Yeah. And, it was such an amazing
That had to be
thing.
a blast. Yeah.
It was so amazing.
Is that on the internet? Can one see that? Do they preserve that?
You can totally watch it.
Will you send me a link to that? I'd love to watch that.
I totally will. I will. Yes. And I, you know what? Do you believe in visualization?
I do.
Okay. I could see myself there. Like I could see myself being Mrs. USA, because the reason I want to be Mrs. USA is to really have a platform to reach more women. Because I started out wanting to reach 1 million, and I thought that was a pretty lofty goal for somebody that was afraid of public speaking.
Wow.
And then I've reached millions through all kinds of vehicles, not just one. And so for me, it was that reason. That was the reason. I really want to reach more women to believe in the beauty of their dreams, to have, self-confidence, to build their self-esteem through building health. So they really wouldn't settle for less than what they're worthy of.
Amazing. Yep.
Yeah. It's just coming out.
It is a cool thing. I hope this has been helpful for whoever's listening. Thank you for listening. I hope that this has been, a helpful sort of set of ways of thinking about things, because ultimately what scares me the most, my thinking definitely changed after having a child, and the thought of what is our generation given to the next. I would love for it to be more than tools to waste your life. The way people just get addicted to scrolling and double tapping. And it's just, I spend my time in Instagram Reels or TikTok or, Facebook groups or, Snap or X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's sad to think at the end of your life, you're going to be like, yeah, I could have done that, but I scrolled a lot instead.
It's because they feel empty, though.
It feels very empty. But here's the deal is Mark Zuckerberg buys another 450-foot yacht because you scrolled.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's hired like casino game designers on staff at Facebook, at Meta.
Yes.
To help them make it as addictive as a slot machine. They have behavioral economists on staff to make sure that is addictive as it can be, because that's the contempt he has for you. He's like, I don't want to know that you wrote a book that you could have written. I don't want to know that you wrote the the blog that helped people. I don't want to know that you cured cancer. I just want you to scroll because that's how I make money. And that really burns me up. So I hope if someone listening is like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to close my phone right now and start working on my book or start working on my blog or start working on my restaurant idea and start doing a business plan for your restaurant. It's great. Don't go to your grave with your greatness inside you.
Yeah, perfect segue for a great podcast. And I really enjoyed your take on everything. It's so insightful that I really I only looked at my questions one time.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I know. I'm just going to go with the flow, so to speak. No pun
So
intended.
nicely done. I see what you're doing there. Okay.
But I really enjoyed it. I
Thank
really
you for having me.
enjoyed the insightfulness and just I think the heartfelt passion behind making your choice and then how you
Yeah.
imparted it to the audience.
Super fun. I'm glad we're here. And thank you to everyone who's listening or watching on the YouTube channel.
Okay, tell us where we can find your YouTube channel. If you are on social media, where we can follow you.
Well, really, the best thing to do is if someone is interested in what we're talking about doing something with their life, like they have an hour a day to do something powerful, go to Sukha. It's the Sukha. Sukha means happiness in Sanskrit. So it's called the Happiness Company. So it's TheSukha.co for company, the Sukha Company. Find me in there every day. There's a group chat. You can DM me. You can say hi, whatever. And just love to know, what are you choosing to do with your life? Like if you have this opportunity, what's it going to be?
Thank you so much, Steven,
Thanks
for
for having
coming
me.
on today.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
And I've really enjoyed it. And everybody, make sure you look up his app and get more of what Steven's been laying down today. And as always, keep on keeping on. Bye, everyone.
And I hope that all of our listeners have enjoyed this podcast. And if you guys have really enjoyed this, please review us in iTunes and also share this episode with your friends and your loved ones. Thanks again for listening to the Sisterhood of S.W.E.A.T.